We've got a lot of different topics to cover in this Fertilizer 101 series. And in this, which is going to be our wrap-up, we'll go over basically answering the question, what's the best fertilizer for you? Stay tuned. Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and we're going to finish the Fertilizer 101 series with a bit of a wrap-up, kind of a short overview of everything we've learned, and then answering a very, very important question. What is the best fertilizer for you? So we've talked about in each episode kind of a brief overview of delivery methods, nutrients, whether they're the macros, the most important nutrients, the ones we use the most of, or they're the micronutrients, those little trace elements. And we can even dig those a little further, where the macros are basically all a type of a salt, and the micros are all types of trace metals that we need in our water. Then we went through really, really in-depth on each of the delivery methods, liquid all-in-one, root tabs, and then powdered fertilizers with the EI estimated index method, and really examined each of those, their pros, their cons, what makes them matter, and why we would pay attention to them, or why we would ignore them. One thing that I want to cover really quickly, each of these methods strives for a certain goal. And while I could do an entire video explaining this difference, I'd actually point you toward a fantastic video that just came out from Green Aqua, where Balash explained the difference between lean and rich nutrient fertilization. These methods basically are, the short version of this is keeping just enough nutrients in the water to keep all the plants healthy, but to promote this really robust color. A lot of times this is done via nitrogen deficiency with lots of red plants, versus having tons and tons of nutrients available, promoting maximum possible growth and density and lushness, and potentially risking algae. So these two methods, they have their pros and their cons. There's very different ways that we fertilize in order to achieve each of those. And honestly, I'm just going to link you to Balash's video because I think he explains it so perfectly that there's no reason for me to go really deep on it. And just the Green Aqua guys do such a great job, and they cover a lot of the topics that we've talked about as well. What's the key lesson that we've learned here? We have a couple of different all-in-one types, whether that's liquid or root tabs, and basically the biggest lesson we learned is regardless of who makes that product, they're all kind of the same. There's very, very minute, small differences from each manufacturer or creator, whether we're talking like Aquarium Co-op's line of either root tabs or liquid fertilizers, or Nylock G, or even Seachem, although some of the manufacturers do have a more diverse line. So Seachem and Brightwell, for example, have lots of other additives beyond just their kind of base all-in-ones. So despite the fact that this bottle of Brightwell has just magically appeared in my hand, is their base all-in-one, they also have additives for iron, calcium, phosphorus, direct nitrogen. So it can kind of let you do a pseudo version of the estimated index method. And if you look at, like, say, Seachem, for example, has a really, really robust dosing schedule that has you dosing the akin of the estimated index, in the sense that you've got a lot of different stuff done every day. You can follow the schedules to some really, really extreme success. But in the end, the all-in-ones, the bottles like this, they're all roughly the same. So it's a matter of finding the one you like and sticking to it. Whichever one gives you the most success, don't be afraid to try a couple, but whatever one gives you the most success, you don't see that much algae with it, and you see nice healthy plants in good color, that's the one you want to use. The same applies to root tabs, whether it's the gel capsule or the more solidified, harder, like clay and soil-based tabs. So again, just a reminder, we have like the Aquarium Co-op has a gel-based root tab where it's a gel capsule with a bunch of fertilizer inside it. And then Seachem has the Flourish tabs, and there's a million people that make each of these types. This isn't the only ones out there, folks. Keep that in mind. Where these are the harder, more mineralized soil or clay-based. The difference between them is so minimal. It's all about application and which you prefer. These are going to be a little bit cheaper, the gels. These are a little easier to plant, but a little bulkier. These are slimmer, so easier to get into tight spaces, etc. In the end, whether it's this or it's this, they're going to do roughly the same thing for your plants. So find the one that works best for you and stick to it. Finally, there's the estimated index method where we're buying tins of stuff like this, and in the long run, this is the cheapest. Up front, it might be a little expensive because you're going to buy a couple packs, macros and micros, and combined, they might cost you somewhere between $50 and $75. If you go really, really robust, maybe $100, and that's US. I know it's different in everyone's market. But in the end, each of these tins is somewhere between $7 and $15, and a lot of times they'll sell you a pack that's like all of the macros in one go for $50. Here's all the micros in one go for $25 or $30. And if you need some extras, like you need extra nitrogen or something, you'd buy one tin, and that's an extra $10 to $12 depending on the size. Like, I think the size like this from Greenleaf Aquariums is something like $12 or $13. It's not that expensive in the long run for how long these last you. EI allows you to dial in this really, really hyper-focused dosing method. It's really great if you're going high CO2, high-tech, very difficult plants. You're an extremely, extremely experienced plant person, and you've done enough with fertilizer to get an understanding of what you need and how to identify problems. So like if I see all my leaves are curling, I know that's a calcium deficiency, I need to add a little extra calcium. You kind of have that committed to memory, or at least are really good at spotting it right away. Then you might look into something like the estimated index method. Or if you have a lot of planted tanks and you're tired of spending a lot of money on fertilizer. In the end, what is the best fertilizer for you? It's time to answer that question. And unfortunately, I'm going to answer it in a very vague way. There is no perfect solution. Everything is kind of good. And what I will say is if you're a beginner, maybe it's your first planted tank, or maybe you just don't you haven't had a ton of success. Like certain plants have done well, but other plants you've really struggled with. Maybe you're not using CO2. I would look at a liquid all-in-one. Okay, so most of our plants, when we deal with them, all of them can in some way feed off of the water column, which means that no matter what kind of plant it is, even swords and crypts, they will absorb nutrients through the water column. If we have a good substrate, a nice like a ADA Amazonia, Fluval Stratum, Brightwells, amazing stuff. I mean, there's a ton of different ones out there. You guys know they're all similar. Those lovely nutrient-rich substrates that will absorb extra nutrients out of the water column, then all you need is a liquid. Now, if you have a brand new tank and you're doing lots of tissue cultures or brand new plants that all are immersed, grown, and you're going to cut them off like how Uris does with crypts, maybe you want to look at root tabs to start and then transition to an all-in-one. If you're only doing like swords, Aponogetons, crypts, all these heavy root feeders, you're not doing any stems, buy root tabs. They're cheap, they're efficient, they last a long time. Each of these has its really, really huge advantage. And the thing is just looking at your tank and going, which advantage is the best for me? If you're keeping lots of easy plants, especially if you have lots of epiphytes, all-in-one liquid fertilizer. Get your Easy Green, your Dustin's Grow Juice, your Nylock G Thrive, your Seachem Flourish, Flourish Advance, your if you're out there, your Green Aqua, any of those different various all-in-one liquids, ADA, Tropica, Dennerley, Brightwell, there's a ton. Get the one that works best for you, stick to it, and there's some simple things. You can either A, follow the dosing instructions exactly, which is what Balash would recommend, or if it says like, for low light, do this, for medium light, do that. If you have CO2, maybe up your dose a little bit, and what I would say is instead of dosing, if it says dose this much a week, take that amount, divide it down, so if you can, do a smaller daily dose. That's going to give you a better benefit. That's just a tip from me. In my experience, I've seen far significant growth, health, lushness, color, all that good stuff out of my plants when I do a small dose every day than when I do a big dose once or twice a week. Now, if your tank is really, really simple, you've got lots of good plant life, you do your like a regular 50% water change, it's perfectly okay to dose only once or twice a week. Make it simple on yourself. It's okay. Do what works best for you. If you've had problems where before following the exact instructions has caused you to lose a lot of plants, try dosing a little bit every day. If you've had lots of issues with algae, again, this might be another reason to dose every day because it's a smaller amount in the water stream continuously instead of a big spike and then slowly tapering off and a big spike and then slowly tapering off. If you have been doing these kind of things and you've realized like, oh, in my water, well, I need to add a little bit of extra this and add a bit of extra that when you're using your liquids, maybe you're using like some of the CChem additives, then it might be time to start looking into this stuff. To start looking into estimated index, especially if you use CO2 and really high light, you're going for some higher demand plants. Fertilizing every day with a good mixture of stuff that you can kind of fine tune a little bit beyond the suggested instructions. Start with a suggestion, always start with a suggestion, see how it is and monitor, and then only make small adjustments if it's obvious that you need to. If you don't need to, don't. Well, if your plants are healthy, don't change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's an old adage for a reason. So that's my basics. If you're a beginner, pick up a liquid all-in-one. This just happens to be the one that I have on hand is the Brightwell Florin Multi. It's actually pretty nice stuff. I've been enjoying using it. Aquarium Co-op Easy Green is another one I've used a lot and I really enjoy. Lots of people have told me they'd love Nylock Thrive or etc. etc. You guys know the jam. There's a ton of these. This is not a review of an individual product. Just that find the one that works best for you. Stick to it. If you're dealing with lots and lots of root feeders and you really only want to fertilize once a month, root taps. If you want to go super easy. If you have water column feeders though, make sure that you have some kind of liquid fertilizer up in the water column. If you need to go as cheap as possible, look for a powdered alternative. Greg Sage, Select Aquatics, has an all-in-one that is based off a powder and is supposed to be fairly cheap. You might try that. I personally haven't, but I've heard some really good results from folks in the past, so it might be worth checking out. Finally, the last thing I would suggest to you is this. When it comes to understanding fertilizers, understanding what the important differences between this and this is one thing. You. It's not about what's inside the bottle or the tin or the root tab. It's about you maintaining a schedule and sticking to it. As long as we fertilize at a set schedule, we water change at a set schedule, we will inevitably see success with plants. Certain plants might be hard for us. Certain plants might just take over our tank faster than we ever thought. This is going to happen. Everybody has their thing that they're bad at. I've got a couple that I'm not very good at. I've got others that I have grow like weeds and other people say they have struggle with them. It's different in everybody's water. Find what works best for you. Keep to a regimented schedule and you will find success. Hopefully, each of the videos in this series has taught you a little bit, kind of led you down the path where you're just like, that sounds right. That sounds like the right thing for me to do. Trust your instinct. No matter what I tell you, it might not work best for you, but if you know, like, hey man, that Aquarium Co-op Easy Green, I have algae with it, but I never have algae when I use Nylock G. Or the vice versa. I've heard a lot of people tell me, like, man, I tried this, I thought it was great, I got algae all over the place. I tried this other product, never had algae. And the difference between them is, like, almost nothing. But if it works, use it. That's it, man. Whether it's superstition or not, whether you're like going sports level, never change your socks, use what works best for you. That's it, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed this series. I've had a blast kind of digging a little deeper into what we use in our fertilizer and kind of how our planted tanks tick when it comes to what we need in order to be successful. If you've enjoyed this series, please, please, please give it a like, give it a share. That helps with the magic YouTube algorithms. It helps the channel more than anything else. If you are new to this channel, or maybe you've been watching this and just kind of checking it out and you're not subscribed, which is like, I think 60% of the people who watch my videos, consider a little subscribe. Maybe even ring that notification bell. That way, when I do the next one of these in-depth series, or give you an option to choose what I do next, you'll see it first, and you'll be able to directly influence the channel. I'd love to hear your comments down below. What's the biggest lesson you learned from this series? Or maybe more importantly, what's the thing you want to try now that you've watched everything in the series? What's the one thing that you didn't do before that you want to start doing now? Let me know down in the comments below. I love reading your guys' comments. It's always a blast just to see everybody's perspective, what they've learned, what they enjoy, what they don't like, whatever it may be. That's the stuff I enjoy. If for some reason you've watched all of the videos in this series and you don't like planted tanks and you don't understand why I've done 6 videos on fertilizer, you can hit thumbs down. It's okay, but only if you do it twice. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome. Well, that's it. We did it. I really hope you've enjoyed this series. It's just some tidbits into the near future, just to give you an idea of part of what prompted this series is I have like this lovely florid multi from Brightwell, which I've been doing some slow testing on, and when we get Testing Lab online, this is actually the first fertilizer we're using is just florid multi across every tank. Sirens in the background. That's fun. Let's wait. Okay, they're gone now. We can talk again. But yeah, the florid multi will be what I use on the first set of testing, just because that way it gives us a nice baseline. It'll be just the florid multi. Shouldn't need anything else unless we start seeing some kind of deficiency because one light is too powerful or whatever. That will hopefully happen soon. I'm trying to rearrange my house, but everything that has to do with COVID basically has stopped me from getting any of the assistance I need. It's been a wild ride, but when I can, it'll be coming, I promise. Until then, we'll have some kind of mini testing labs coming up, and some more smaller test stuff that I've been doing that will tie into it, and some of it does include some wonderful products from Brightwell, like a product called Razor, which is really sweet. So it helps remove algae and deal with algae issues. And I got a video coming up. You'll see when I start like diving into what my actual process and testing is. But just a last thing, I really want to thank there's 2 members currently at the Rainbow Fish level. This is kind of your shout out, but just in general, during this extremely crazy time, I wanted to take this section at the end of this video to thank every member, whether that is through Patreon or YouTube. You folks are being generous in a time when so many people are hurting. And I can't tell you how much that means to me for the ability to keep doing my dumb videos on the internet. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to kind of give a little love to everybody, but especially those who get their shout-outs at the Rainbow Fish level. So Ginger Graves and Cody, you guys are the best. There's a few folks that had to bring their pledges down because of COVID, and I totally understand. Human Malware is a jerk. You're doing the right thing. You know who you are. Thank you so much. Just the fact that you even watch is really all that I care about, and watching and sharing, it's just fantastic. But thank you so much, guys. I look forward to doing more and more of this stuff in the future. If for some reason you're watching this at the end of the video and you're not a member, maybe consider just diving in. I think as a thanks during this particular human malware, the way the world is, everybody at every level is going to get access to the Discord. So for the members that are there, be looking out for that. So even if you're an autosynkless level, you're gonna get access to the Discord, and that's permanent. If you did it for 1 month, you have permanent access to Discord, unless you break the rules and get kicked out. But I kind of want to give a little thanks to the folks who are doing what they can when they don't need to, in a time where budgets are tight for a lot of people. So this is my way to say thank you. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.